Okay, we're gonna try this again. I have tried recording this multiple times. Um, Ultimately, there's either a child or some sort of crazy, unbelievable something. Or I recorded this in two parts and it has to be under 15 minutes in order to go ahead and post. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it in three parts. Yay! So here we go. This is the Critter Club, and this one's called Amy and the Missing Puppy. This is a series. I have four of the first four. I don't know how many are in the whole series. This is by Callie Barkley, and I'm gonna try to do all of them if I can. So we're gonna start before another incident happens and somebody runs through. Yeah. So here we go. All right. So again, this is the Critter Club and Amy and the Missing Puppy. Oh, don't mind my crazy hair. All right. Yeah. Something. Chapter 1, Spring Break Blues. Amy felt herself starting to blush. Her cheeks felt warm, then hot. Amy shook her short, light brown hair over her freckled face. She hoped it would hide her bright pink cheeks. At least I'm not at school, Amy thought. I hate blushing in front of the whole class. In fact, Amy wouldn't be back at her school, Santa Vista Elementary, for one whole week. It was the Friday night before spring break. Amy was in her bedroom with her best friends, Marion, Ellie, and Liz. They had a sleepover almost every Friday. This week it was Amy's turn to host. The girls were finishing up a game of MASH. Amy held up the paper that had made her blush. She pointed to the name of her future husband. And what it says is, you'll live with her future husband of Stuart. They'll live in an apartment. They'll have 4 children. She's going to be a writer. And she's going to live in Paris. Hoity-toity is she. Ooh, sorry, that gets a little bright. But hey, I remember playing this as a kid. Does anybody still play this game, MASH, when they have sleepovers? Continuing on. Liz, Marion, and Ellie squealed. You're so lucky, Amy, Ellie said, shaking her hands to dry her newly painted nails. Stuart was Liz's big brother. He was 12. All the girls, except for Liz, thought he was the cutest. I didn't think my brothers were cute either. I still don't. Lucky, said Liz. Marion was braiding Liz's wavy blonde hair in front of the mirror. Liz wrinkled her nose. Who would want to marry my brother? Ew. My sentiment exactly. I can't stay up too late tonight, Marion said. She wrapped a hairband around Liz's braids. Tomorrow, my mom and I are taking Coco to a big horse show. Coco was Marion's brown, purebred horse. Marion was a great rider. Together, Marion and Coco had won tons of blue ribbons. We'll be out of town for most of the week, Marion added, her green eyes twinkling. Me too, says Liz. Liz and her family were going to the beach. I can't wait. A whole week of sun, sand, and best of all, no homework. Liz flopped back onto Amy's bed. I'm going to bring my easel and paint box. I'll paint you each a sunset. Amy loved Liz's paintings. She was such a good artist. Ellie sighed and fluffed her red pillow. Well, I'll be here in Santa Vista all week, she said, plopping down. Her tight black curls bounced over her headband. Ellie tossed her head dramatically. Boring! But at least my Nana Gloria is coming to stay. Ellie's grandmother was moving in with her family. She's bringing over some boxes and her parrot, Lenny. I want to teach him a song. Then we can sing a duet. Ellie grabbed a pink hairbrush. She blinked on Amy's MP3 player. Singing along with a pop song, Ellie belted into her hairbrush microphone. Ellie always sang loudly and with feeling, like an actress on a stage. How about you, Amy? Ellie said. What are you going to do this week? Amy's heart sank a little. Her friends all had somewhere to go or something to do. She didn't. Amy's parents were divorced, and Amy lived with her mom in Santa Vista. Her dad lived in Orange Blossom, the next town over. Amy sighed as she remembered that she couldn't even go visit her dad this break because he was away on business. Amy shrugged. Read? She said. I do have a brand new Nancy Drew book. Count the change in my piggy bank? Dust my sticker collection. Her friends giggled. But Amy was only half joking. What was she going to do? I guess I'll help my mom. at the clinic," Amy said. Amy's mom, Dr. Melanie Purvis, was a veterinarian. She ran a vet clinic in the house next door. Pets from all over Santa Vista came for their checkups. Other times, animals came when they were sick or hurt. Amy loved animals of all kinds. She also loved spending time at her mom's clinic. As if reading her mind, Amy's cat Millie crawled out from under the bed. She climbed into Amy's lap. "Millie will keep me company. Right, Millie?" Only 7 days until next Friday, their next sleepover. Then they would all be together again. Oh well, thought Amy, spring break can't last forever. Chapter 2. A New Friend. Monday morning was slow at the vet clinic. Amy sat behind the front desk. Her mom was busy in back, checking on a sick hamster. Gail, the vet assistant, had gone out for coffee. It looked like Amy was in charge. Normally being in charge made Amy feel important, but not today. Instead, she wondered what her friends were up to. She sighed. Nothing ever happens in Santa Vista, she thought. Amy looked down at the day's list of appointments. The next patient wouldn't be there for another 15 minutes. Amy had already watered the flower bed out front and filled all the treat jars in the waiting room with fritter-critter healthy pet snacks. Amy tucked the half-empty bag of dog treats into her pocket of her yellow hoodie. Since she had some time to spare, she decided to read her book. She put on her purple reading glasses and opened her new Nancy Drew mystery. So at the top, it's the book she's reading, so I'll read that. Nancy started by making a list of suspects. Who could have taken the prize-winning pony from Alice's barn during the night? She asked herself. The next-door neighbor, old Mr. Gilbert, came to mind. He sure had been gruff when Nancy met him. Plus, Alice had said that in the whole 10 years she had moved in, Mr. Gilbert had never once smiled or waved over the fence. Sometimes she felt like Mr. Gilbert didn't want a neighbor at all. Well, that was the Nancy Drew book. Now back to our regular book. Amy heard a car pull up outside. As she looked out the window, the door of a fancy silver car opened. Amy squinted as a figure stepped out of the car. Amy gasped. It was none other than Marge Sullivan. Marge Sullivan had lived in Santa Vista for years now. She lived alone, way out on the edge of town. Her house was huge, like a mansion. Amy didn't know anyone who had ever been inside. People said Miss Sullivan was a billionaire. She hardly ever came into town. When she didn't talk much. Kids and even some parents were afraid of her. Now and then, some brave kids would ring her doorbell on Halloween, but they always ran away before she came to the door. Amy smoothed her hair and sat up very straight in her chair as Mrs. Sullivan strode in. Miss Sullivan didn't seem like the kind of person who you should slouch around. No, that doesn't sound good. The older woman looked down at Amy. It felt like a cold, "Who are you?" look. Amy opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Amy felt the warmth rising in her cheeks. Oh no, she was starting to blush. All of a sudden, Amy heard the jingle of a dog collar. Around the desk came a blur of brown and white fur. Amy felt a paw on either shoulder as she toppled off of her chair. The next thing she knew, she was on the floor, and a drooly St. Bernard puppy was covering her face with doggy kisses. Those are the best kisses. Amy giggled and squealed. The fritter-critter treats fell out of her pocket and scattered onto the floor. The puppy sniffed them up and gobbled them down. "Bad boy, Rufus. Naughty," Mrs. Sullivan said sternly. The puppy returned to Mrs. Sullivan's side. He sat and looked up at her. His tail was wagging a mile a minute. Still giggling, Amy picked herself up off the floor. She dried her face with the sleeve of her hoodie. "Well, it looks like you've made a new friend," Mrs. Sullivan said to Amy. Amy looked up for a split second. She thought she saw Mrs. Sullivan's mouth turn up at the corners. Was that a smile? Amy had never seen Mrs. Sullivan smile before. She'd never seen her with a puppy before either. She thought. Miss Sullivan doesn't seem like a pet person. Anyone can be a pet person. Just then, Dr. Purvis, Amy's mother, came into the waiting room. "Hello, Marge. Hello, Rufus," she said. She led them to an exam room. Amy looked down at her favorite yellow hoodie. Below each shoulder was one perfect muddy paw print. Guess Rufus found the wet flower bed on his way in, Amy thought. She laughed and tried to wipe off the prints with a paper towel. It didn't help. Rufus had left his mark. Okay, we're going to stop, and we'll pick up at chapter 3.